So there are two reasons why people conform to groups. This is what we've been learning so far in this mini-series. The first is to get an accurate perception of reality when uncertain, and the second is to be liked. Britannica says, people conform to group pressure because they are dependent on the group for satisfying two important desires. The desire to have an accurate perception of reality and the desire to be accepted by other people. Now, up until now, we've mainly been focusing on this first desire, how we rely on the crowd to lead us when we're uncertain. We do the social test to get social proof. So, for example, if you need a new vacuum cleaner, but you don't know anything about vacuum cleaners, what do? You go into customer reviews and see what the crowd's saying. What's the most popular one? Right, I'm sure the crowd's right. I'll get that one too. I don't know anything about clothes or cups. So what are celebrities and influencers doing? Right, I'm sure that they know what they're saying. I'll go with that too. I don't know how to respond to COVID. So what's everyone else doing? Oh, they're rushing to get toilet paper. I'm sure there's a reason for that. I'll do that as well. I don't know how to respond to this climate change business. So what's everyone else doing? Oh, they're all becoming vegan. Right, that must be the way. That must be the thing to do. I'll do that as well. And we've seen how that can be manipulated because once we start following the crowd like this, our brain has effectively switched off and we become, as Gustave Le Bon said, an automaton. Remember how he said that in crowds, a person is no longer himself, but has become an automaton who has ceased to be guided by his will. He says, in a crowd, every sentiment and act is contagious, which is why, as we've also seen, we can end up in this mode applauding gibberish and becoming a part of gibberish. And we concluded the last episode by saying that the safeguard against this happening is to become personally informed. The more informed we become, the less we rely on the herd and the less vulnerable we are to that kind of crowd manipulation. However, we've not yet really focused on the second desire. And this one's just as important because even if we are personally informed and even if we do know what the right thing to do is, we can still find ourselves just going along with the herd anyway, simply to be liked. There's a head reason to go with the crowd, but there's also a heart reason. Some people go with the crowd simply because they're uninformed, they're ignorant, they are just going because they don't know. But some people do have the knowledge of the truth and yet will suppress that knowledge just to go with the herd anyway because they want to feel the warmth of social inclusion and social acceptance. This next experiment will show vividly what I mean by this. This is called the Ash experiment. It's a very famous experiment. In this clip, we're going to see people who know what the right answer is, but who will say the wrong thing anyway, just to feel the warmth of group inclusion.
The Ash experiment is one of psychology's oldest and most popular pieces of research. A volunteer is told that he's taking part in a visual perception test. What he doesn't know is that the other participants are actors, and he's the only person taking part in the real test, which is actually about group conformity.
Please begin. The experiment you will be taking part in today involves the perception of line length. Your task will be simply to look at the line here on the left and indicate which of the three lines on the right is equal to it in length. So, for example, if you...
The actors have been told to match the wrong lines. The volunteer will be monitored to see if he gives the correct answer or if he goes along with the opinion of the group and gives the wrong answer. In the first test, the correct answer is 2.
1. 1.
1.
2.
1.
Once again, the correct answer is 2.
3.
3.
3.
3.
3.
The Ash experiment has been repeated many times, and the results have been supported again and again. We will conform to the group. Again, we're very social creatures. We're very much aware of what the people around us think. We want to be liked. We don't want to be seen to rock the boat, so we will go along with the group. Even if we don't believe what people are saying, we'll still go along.
1.
1.
1.
1.
Group dynamics is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology.
The Ash experiment was repeated on brain games with a slight variation of having to physically stand by the answer you thought was correct. This added a little bit of extra psychological pressure because if you conformed, you were allowed to stand with the group. But if you chose differently, you physically had to stand alone all by yourself with everyone else gazing at you like an idiot.
Would you rather stand alone and be right, or follow the group and be wrong? The answer might seem obvious, but the truth just may surprise you.
The rules of this game are simple. Over here, we've drawn a line. And over here, we've drawn 3 lines. A, B, and C. Only one of these 3 lines is an exact match for the first line. Can you figure out which one it is? Got it? Did you say B? Simple enough, right? Or is it? Try one more round with a different version that we're showing our volunteers.
You've got to decide which one of these 3 straight lines is the same length as this first card.
So, where do you stand on this one? A, B, or C? Before you decide, take a look at what our volunteers picked.
What's your choice?
It's A.
You think it's A?
I think so.
Okay, go to A. A. A.
It's A. Definitely A.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going with A.
Okay.
The answer seems obvious, right? Or is it? Take one last look. Are you going with these people who all picked A? Or did you choose to go with B or C? Time's up. Got your pick?
It's A.
You're gonna go with the group?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Is that what you picked? Or did you go with another answer? It turns out the answer to this round is C. And while you likely chose C first and stuck with your answer, we also know that some viewers might have felt the peer pressure and switched to A.
It's A.
I want to ask you something. Did your gut at first tell you that the answer was actually C?
Yeah, but everyone was choosing A, so I just felt like I had to pick A too.
You felt the pull of the crowd.
Yeah.
In case you haven't figured it out yet, we'll let you in on a little secret. The first 9 people in this line were working for us, and each time we ran the experiment, they were instructed to pick the same wrong answer.
A.
A. It's A.
Seeing all these people choose A left the last person in line who wasn't in on it with a tough decision: to go with their gut or with a group.
You're gonna go with the group?
Yeah.
Although not all of the test subjects at the end of the line fell for it.
I think it's C.
In spite of what everybody else thinks. You don't trust the wisdom of the crowd?
I'm trusting my gut.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest, I think C looks closest.
And you think that they're all wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, guys.
And don't beat yourself up if you were tempted to go along with the crowd.
Make your choice.
I'm gonna have to go with A.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. What happened?
I have a confession.
Okay.
I actually thought it was C.
Did you start to question your own judgment?
I did. I don't want to be the dumb kid. I don't want to stand out. You know, I was like, A.
Have you ever ignored the truth to fit in with a group? Just think, what if those weren't lines, but evidence in a murder case? Would you be able to see past the group consensus and just go with your gut?
Studies show that when someone holds a different opinion than the rest of the group, the anterior cingulate cortex, also known as the oops area of the brain, produces an error signal. We try to fix that by modifying our opinion to be in line with the group, even if it's a viewpoint we're uncomfortable with or know is wrong.
If the crowd adopts a false belief, even if we personally know it's false, there's still a chance that we will suppress that knowledge and say the wrong thing anyway, just so that we get to feel the warmth of group approval and group inclusion. Not everyone's going to do this. Some people did go their own way, but by and large, many people will do this. And there's some very clear real-world examples of this phenomenon happening today. People suppressing the obvious truth to conform their beliefs to that of their peers or the crowd as a whole, even if those beliefs are patently nonsense. For example, nobody really believes that there are more than 2 genders. Everyone knows it's male and female. Everybody knows this. However, some people will suppress that obvious truth and just say whatever keeps them in with the group. Here's a very clear and obvious example of this.
How many genders are there?
I feel like there's 2, because like transgender.
No, Tara, stop. Don't say that on camera.
Yeah, but I feel like you either switch from a boy to a girl.
No,
like
stop.
Back and forth.
Stop. I feel like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to be, it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah, but I feel like they switch back and forth. Like, I know.
Yeah, but like, it doesn't really matter. Like, there's like, you can be anything you want to be. It doesn't matter. Come on, stop.
All right, I'm sorry.
These girls know the truth. Everybody knows the truth, but they know that if they say it, they'll experience social exclusion. So they're willing to conform their response to whatever retains the warmth of the crowd. In fact, the second girl almost speaks the word like she's rehearsing a script. She knows what she's supposed to say to retain the warmth of the crowd. And so she's willing to suppress the obvious truth to say those words. Whatever it is, she's willing to say it. Likewise, nobody really believes that there's such a thing as transgenderism. That is, that a person can be born anatomically and genetically male, and yet if they put on a dress and some makeup and call themselves a woman, that really makes them a real woman. Nobody really believes this. Here's a woman trying to conform to the crowd and say the right things, and yet wait for the end when her true thoughts slip out.
Beautiful trans women out here. Tell us about your transition, how it went.
Can I hold this, please?
No.
So I have a question for you. Why are you asking me those questions?
Like we're interviewing like trans women and stuff like that.
I'm not a trans woman. I'm a...
Oh, no, we're fully supportive. Do you want to talk about sort of transitioning or anything like that, or like what people can...
I never transitioned because I was born a woman.
No, of course you're a woman, of course.
Does it make a trans woman any less of a woman?
No, you are 100% a woman.
I'm not a trans woman.
Is there another definition that people like to use, or...
You thought I was a man?
She knows that trans women are not real women, which is why she gets offended. She knows, but she's suppressing the truth to feel the warmth of the crowd. Likewise, nobody really believes that homosexuality is as natural as heterosexuality. Nobody really believes this. And the Bible, interestingly, directly links suppression of the truth with homosexuality, almost as if it's one of the most clear and primary examples of truth suppression. It says, "But God shows his anger from heaven against all sinful, wicked people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. They know the truth about God because he has made it obvious to them. For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature. So they have no excuse for not knowing God." So the Bible's saying that God has revealed the truth about the world and himself in very obvious ways through his creation. And if you want to dismiss him, or if you want to indulge in sin, you really have to work hard to suppress that truth because he's made it just so obvious. And it goes on to say a few verses later, that is why God abandoned them to their shameful desires. Even the women turned against the natural way to have sex and instead indulged in sex with each other. And the men, instead of having normal sexual relations with women, burned with lust for each other. Men did shameful things with other men, and as a result of this sin, they suffered within themselves the penalty they deserved. It's very obvious that when you see a plug and socket, that one thing is meant for the other. It's the only way that you get that thing to work, that thing to function, that thing to come alive. When you see a lock and a key, it's very obvious that one thing is meant for the other. It's the only way that the door opens. And likewise, when you see a man and a woman, it's very obvious that one thing is meant for the other. For one reason, it's the only way that we get life. When a man and a woman come together. There's many other reasons as well. It's obvious. And you really have to work hard to suppress that truth to say otherwise. Which is why it says that God eventually abandons people to these things. God will strive with you for a while regarding these truths and speak through your conscience for a while. But such is the sheer effort and self-delusion and truth suppression required to push through on these things that eventually God will take his hands off and say, if you're that determined to ignore me and suppress the truth, then I'm just going to let you go and you will suffer the consequences of those actions. And as we've seen through the Ash experiment, people will. They will suppress obvious truth to adopt false positions if it means they get to conform to the crowd and feel the warmth of social approval. But you know deep down that homosexuality is unnatural. Everybody does. And even if your conscience is seared now, I can guarantee there was once a point when you were uncomfortable with it and you knew it was wrong. We could go on, but you get the point. Deep down, I think everyone knows that abortion is murder as well, but many suppress that truth to conform to the liberal crowd. Now, all of this being the case, how do we safeguard ourselves against this kind of group conformity? In the last episode, we said that the defense against this kind of group conformity was to become personally informed. Become personally informed and you'll rely less on the group. And if you do that, you'll be less open to manipulation. The defense against this kind of group conformity, however, is to become personally courageous. Be informed, be courageous. Those are the two things. Those are the two solutions. We need to have bravery, the bravery to stand alone. If we don't want to get caught up in social contagions that have us parroting nonsense about there being 1,000 genders and men being women and homosexuality being natural, we have to learn to be okay with being disliked. We have to learn to stand alone, even against the crowd. That takes courage. It takes courage to do that which is right but unpopular. This is why the Bible is constantly exhorting us to have that courage, so we won't be swayed around by the tides of popular opinion in any given era. So, my dear brothers and sisters, be strong and immovable. Be on guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be courageous. Be strong. This is my command. Be strong and courageous. For God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. Now, unfortunately, some parts of the church have shown a distinct lack of courage and have joined the suppression of truth in culture to conform to the current gender ideologies of the day. We've seen that in the Anglican Church recently, for example, but others as well. And that's not what God wants. That's a betrayal of God. That's a betrayal of what God has made. God wants us to be willing to stand firm for the truth in any given situation, whatever the cost, though it means social rejection and isolation. God's no respecter of cowardice. Remember in Revelation, it talks about who will be excluded from eternal life. And it says, but cowards, unbelievers, murderers, the immoral, those who practice witchcraft, idol worshippers, and all liars, their fate is in the fiery lake of burning sulfur. That is the second death. God does not respect cowardice. So we need to have courage to stand apart in our culture. And if we do, there's a freedom in this. There's a freedom of being released from the herd with all of its expectations. Here are some quotes to think about before we end this episode. Conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth. The opposite of bravery is not cowardice, but conformity. In other words, they're basically the same thing. All progress has resulted from people who took unpopular positions. I hope some of these words can inspire you to do the right thing, to leave the herd and to go against the crowd, even when that's difficult. If you know that there are two genders like these girls clearly do, then say it and stand up for it, even if that makes you unpopular. If you know that there's no such thing as transgenderism and homosexuality is unnatural and abortion is murder, then be brave and say it and stand up for it, even if that means standing up alone within a crowd. Otherwise, you become complicit players and contributors in these mass delusions that are pulling our civilization towards the edge of collapse. You can help to break these spells that have been cast upon the world, but to do so, you have to be informed and you have to be courageous.